dying, Ben barely made a sound. The computers, piercing sirens and flashing lights alerted me. I hadn't even managed to get out of my sleeping bag when my smartwatch lit up with half a dozen system failure messages. Astronaut 1, heart rate monitor failure. Astronaut 1, galvanic skin response sensor failure. Astronaut 1, oxygen consumption monitor failure. The situation only hit me when I was already shaking an unresponsive Ben. Rolled back white eyes, blood pooling in his ears like red jelly. The viscosity, the mass, the lack of gravity. Just looking at it made me nauseous. Mission Control. Mission Control would later say Ben died of an aneurysm. A 1 in a million chance. A ridiculous death that, by circumstance, occurred in low Earth orbit. And now what? I asked. And when the panic subsided, and I finally realized the reality of my situation, Mission Control sent me a rarely used and classified document detailing what I had to do. Corpses pose a unique threat in microgravity conditions, it explained. The whole mess turns into chaos. Solid becomes liquid. Liquid turns to gas. First, I needed to put Ben's body somewhere with no oxygen and freezing cold. Somewhere he wouldn't be a danger to himself or to me. In isolation, but where he could be easily retrieved. The conclusion was obvious. I knew what they would suggest even before I read that part in the instructions. It all happened so fast that Ben was still warm. When I put him in a special bag designed for the vacuum of space, I half expected him to start protesting as I pulled his stiffening limbs and bent his swelling joints. And every step of the process, every zipper, every Velcro strap, I had to remind myself that he wouldn't complain. It felt intimate, but it wasn't. Intimacy takes two. By that point, Ben was just a piece of meat. The spacewalk itself is something unimaginable. The bag with Ben's body inflated in the vacuum, and I had an instinctive desire to undo everything I had done. There was a body in there, and between the body and open space, there shouldn't be such a flimsy barrier. Touching the bag, I could still feel Ben through the paper-thin material. The bend of an elbow, the bump of his nose. By the time I reached the right spot, his body already felt fragile. Technically, securing him to the station turned out to be quite simple, but leaving him there went against every instinct I had. After that, pretending he was coming back became impossible. A day later, I started packing his things. There was a certain catharsis in it that calmed me. I catalogued his belongings with a slight detachment. Mostly, his things were dry and uninteresting. Photos with his dog, a book by Michael Shea, an honorary certificate from NASA he received at 10 years old. I discovered a comet, he told me, when we first met in the backyard with a telescope. NASA even let him name it. That's how he knew he wanted to be an astronaut. He called it his calling. Ben was exactly like that. A real Boy Scout, a man without sharp edges. You would think, given our background, that we were close. Two men selected based on deep psychological profiling. Together we simulated several missions to Mars. 2 on Earth, 1 in space, and all strictly classified. And the next was supposed to be an official mission to Mars. And then the project would be declassified. But the key to two people working together for almost a year in total isolation is not finding two inseparable friends, but finding people who won't piss each other off. No hate, no love. Two men comfortable being alone, but not irritating each other. In all that time, Ben and I got to know each other pretty well, but we didn't become brothers in arms. We worked well together precisely because there was no depth to our friendship, no stakes, nothing to argue about. To me, Ben was a good guy, but nothing more. I thought he was simple and transparent to the core. No dark secrets, no real problems worth talking about. The diary changed everything. It was taped to the inside of the computer panel at his workstation, and he must have hidden it close to his things, away from prying eyes, but easy to reach. Frayed edges and yellowed pages, like some ancient artifact. The last thing I expected to find on a space station. I almost mistook its leather cover for some personal Bible. That kind of worn-out tome a preacher waves around shouting curses at the devil. But inside, everything was handwritten and didn't look like scripture at all. Scribbles, figures, phrases repeated and taken apart, some even in binary code. It looked like the ravings of a child or a madman. I thought it might be some mindfulness exercise, mindless drawing to clear the mind in moments of stress. But that didn't explain why he hid it, and why the numbers and pages seemed strangely systematized. I don't know how to describe it exactly. I can only say it gave a vague impression. All this meant something to whoever wrote it. On a shuttle, every gram counts. What you bring with you can't be random junk grabbed at the last minute. Ben must have had permission for this diary. I suppose he kept its contents a secret. One look at what he was writing, and by the end of the day, he'd be sent for a psychiatric evaluation. But the size and weight of the book must have been registered and accounted for. It couldn't have ended up on the station by accident, so I immediately knew Ben needed it for something. I spent over an hour studying it, trying to figure out exactly what for. Flipping page after page, staring at rows of numbers, strange fractals, something that looked like a cross between an eye and a drawing of an atom from a textbook. Considering how his handwriting and drawing skills changed throughout the book, and I began to suspect he had kept it since childhood, adding another layer to the growing mystery. I thought I'd never grasp the essence of this book, until about 3/4 of the way through, I stumbled upon another page covered with rows of numbers. Only this time, one of the lines was underlined, and next to it, scratched in ragged, angry handwriting, was a single word. The only word in English, or indeed any human language, in all those pages. The only thing written so a living person could understand it. The word itself paralyzed me, and my blood ran cold. 170318042636 aneurysm. The suspicion that gripped me was like a form of madness. Checking the data from Ben's biomonitor, I told myself I was crazy, that you'd have to be insane to even entertain such a thought. But the information, recorded by several independent instruments, only confirmed it. Ben's exact time of death, March 17th, 2018. 4 hours, 26 minutes, and 36 seconds. I don't think I moved for a solid 15 minutes after that, just staring at the data while my mind tried to comprehend this colossal, incredible fact. Ben knew he was going to die. Of course, I tried to find a logical explanation. Anyone would. I came up with 6 reasons why he wrote what he wrote. None of them were comforting, even if they somewhat fit into a rational worldview. Take, for example, the idea that Ben killed himself at that exact moment to fulfill some prophecy he had scribbled days or even hours before. Was there anything good in that? What did it mean for me? Setting aside the logistical nuances, what poison can be calculated down to the exact second? Let's say he did, and the chilling question remained. Why? And I saw no comforting answer. Naturally, I read the book cover to cover looking for more clues. I wish I hadn't. In the end, I found another word, this time closer to the very end of the diary. Another date and time, 6 weeks ahead. and another word, agonizing, pressed into the paper by a clumsy hand. Combustion. Access denied. I bit my lip and took a deep breath. What about the integrity of the station? I asked. Judging by the exterior cameras, there are no problems, they replied. I hear something banging on the hull, I told them. Nothing is visible on the cameras. That's exactly why I need to go out and look, I wrote. It's hard to argue with a computer. You can't incinerate it with a glare. Mission Control could easily have arranged video calls, but really, they needed that distance. It's easier to say no. A solo spacewalk is incredibly dangerous, they quickly replied. The microphones on the station's hull aren't picking up anything suspicious. Standard space debris impacts. Nothing to corroborate the report of banging outside. Spacewalk permission denied. I didn't reply, just closed the screen, wondering if they were being completely honest with me. That knocking, coming and going over the last few days, was unmistakable, even over the hum of all those machines and motors. Space stations are noisy. We're even given earplugs to deal with it. But whatever was out there, it somehow sounded louder. Or maybe, given the circumstances, I was just overreacting to the very thought of something being out there. It was undeniable. It was driving me crazy, and one of those sounds you can't tune out, like dripping water in the bathroom at 3 a.m. Knock, 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 knock. At first glance, no system, but maybe there was something hidden in it, some meaning or logic, some pattern the brain catches and can't let go of. How could the microphones not pick it up? Sleeping was getting harder. At times, it felt like the station was under some hidden pressure. Materials froze and heated unevenly. No atmosphere, no thermal conductivity. Under the sun's rays, everything gets scorching hot. Objects heat up and cool down to extreme values. For anything in space, this is routine, of course. But that didn't stop me from thinking that the station was just a pile of metal that could fall apart, crack and tear, bend and stretch. It's like watching your plane's wings shake in turbulence, and an unpleasant reminder that you're just a monkey in a fancy toy. What if something fell off? Something. At first, I strictly stuck to this version, asking myself, what if some antenna, strap, or piece of metal came loose and is now banging against the hull? That would be bad. But of course, I was really thinking about something entirely different. That's what I wrote to Mission Control about over and over, but the thought spinning in my head was, what if somehow he got untied? And that doesn't sound so stupid, right? That specially designed bag he was lying in, the very one that was supposed to vent decomposition gases while maintaining the body's integrity, was brand new, out of the box. Do you know how many times it was tested? 0. Absolutely none. Ben was the first, so of course the bag could have come loose. Just because it's space tech doesn't mean it's perfect. He was tied outside like a Christmas tree to the roof of a family sedan. Maybe, I thought, one of the straps broke, and now he's occasionally hitting the side. Never mind that there's nothing out there that could cause such buffeting. No air, no wind. If he had come untied, he would have just floated a bit further away. But something was making that sound, and I was almost constantly anxious that it was him. The only problem was that I had cameras, lots of cameras, and every single time they showed the same thing. The bag, almost unchanged since I saw it in person, was tightly and securely strapped to the station's hull. That should have calmed me down. It should have, but it didn't. Something was outside knocking on the hull. It would start, then stop. No system, no reason, no connection. a knocking that came and went, as if picking moments to torment me the most. Sleeping was hard for a variety of reasons. The knocking itself was enough, but lately, my nightmares had taken a strange turn. Black, cold. In them, I was trapped in a suffocating film. Freezing cold, unceasing agony, a furious attempt to break free was this black void of a nightmare. Like all truly terrifying dreams, it left an imprint on my thoughts for the rest of the day. And each time, shaking off this delusion became harder. I tried to endure, compartmentalize in my mind, take my mental turmoil, stuff it in a box, write crazy on the lid, and sit rocking back and forth waiting to be rescued. And that was an option, a good option. But there was one short word that kept me from shrinking into a corner and ignoring my own madness. Combustion. And when Mission Control informed me of the shuttle's arrival date, I racked my brain for a long time. Wasn't this all just some grand experiment? All these incredible coincidences, their scale. They sent me messages, and the subject line had 3 exclamation marks, as if the comms guy on the other end couldn't wait to deliver good news for once. And he let his professionalism slip. They had finally arranged a shuttle to pick me up after it dropped off the crew at the ISS. Lucky it was arriving so soon. A brilliant logistical move allowed them to quietly extract Ben and me. I was told to be very grateful, but I was just stunned. The date matched the one Ben wrote. Given the travel time, I would enter Earth's atmosphere at the exact second the prophesied moment arrived and passed. The perfect time for an error, a shifted heat shield, a misfiring engine, something, anything could go wrong. And I'd fly to my death in a burning metal tube. Perfect for combustion. If it was Ben knocking outside, I wanted to know. I needed to know. I was a rational person, a skeptic. I didn't believe that in the natural world there could exist a person capable of predicting their death to the minute or second, just as I didn't believe he could predict mine. But I'm just an animal, made of meat, vulnerable, an exposed nerve in a world of sharp rocks, and I don't like taking chances. That word combustion, not an accident, not chance. Up there, in the void, surrounded by pure oxygen, fire was a constant threat. Ben's short strings of numbers loomed ominously in my mind. I had to make sure everything was in its place, make sure there were no mistakes. If this was a prediction I refused to take at face value, maybe I could benefit from it. What could Ben do in the face of an aneurysm? Nothing. But combustion, fire, an accident. That can be avoided as long as everything is in working order, as long as everything is where it should be. What could Mission Control know? Cameras and remote operators. It's not enough. There was no one in this tin can but me. Why even send humans into space if you don't trust their instincts and judgment? I needed to know what was making that sound. I needed to go outside. Mission Control caught on too late. I was already in the suit, and the airlock had started the depressurization cycle when they realized. I timed it well. Middle of my maintenance shift. Told them I wanted to inspect the suit, make sure everything was okay. Because of that, they didn't immediately figure out what I was up to. Technically, they could stop the process at any stage. They could do whatever from their end, but I threatened to engage the manual override, which would cut them off from that part of the system. They claimed they'd court-martial me upon return, but the threat was laughable. For me, the stakes were higher than a military tribunal. Ultimately, they backed down. Do you know how hard it is to secretly build a space station? That was their priority. If the spacewalk went wrong and I died, the station would remain. $1 billion asset would wait for the next top-secret mission. My life was on the line, not theirs. I accepted that. Because of the lack of time, Mission Control had to accept it too. By the time the hatch finally opened and I could carefully climb out, round the edge, arm and grab onto the station's outer hull, they had already tapped into the cameras and were guiding me to the target. But for me, by that point, it was all just background noise. Their voices and short beeps, constantly updating data on suit temperature and distance to the station hull meant absolutely nothing. All that mattered was the sound, knock, knock, knock. By this point, I was nervous, or to be honest, I was scared. Space is all extremes, not just temperature, but light too. Shadows here are huge and strange. You enter the Earth's shadow and exit it, like passing a hand in front of a projector. And the shadows you cast and what surrounds you, it's a very particular kind of blackness. The station, with its countless tubes and cables, was covered in bottomless shadows, long, distorted silhouettes of unknown origin. And sometimes I looked into this darkness and wondered if there was anything there at all, or if the station had simply been cut in half by some unknown cosmic force. It felt like I could somehow fall in there and disappear forever. Normally, I'd find it beautiful. In the past, spacewalks were akin to a religious experience for me. Now, it felt just as profound, but for entirely different reasons. I felt someone's gaze on me. I tried to ignore it, but it was getting harder. I kept looking over my shoulder. I kept winding myself up over every slightest bump and vibration I felt on the station hull. By the time I reached the spot where I strapped Ben's body, I was on the verge of a panic attack. That whole part of the station was plunged in darkness, the kind where you can't see a damn thing. Only the voice from Mission Control, informing me I'd reached my target, let me know Ben was lying just a meter away. Under their guidance, I found him, and when the light from my flashlight fell on the bag itself, I saw the metallic fabric gleaming with ice. Touching it, I felt Ben's frozen body inside, hard as a rock. I nudged him, but he didn't move a millimeter. The straps holding him in place were still there, strong as ever. What else could be making that sound? I asked. There is one option. The nameless voice on the other end sounded restrained, but that had been the case since Ben died. Mission Control always spoke as if withholding something. And what's that? We don't know 100% how corpses will behave during temperature changes in a vacuum. Obviously, body parts will freeze and expand, liquids in particular. Right now, the bag has a large contact area with the metal hull. According to one theory, the blood could freeze and sublimate as the surface temperature beneath it changes. I looked at the bag and grimaced. And exactly how much blood? We can't say for sure how much leaked from the body. Clearly, the bag's job is to contain it until return. Using the station's instruments, we can confirm the temperature of the panel you're on is well below zero. Everything should be, so to speak, in a manageable state, in solid form. Most likely one big clot, they replied, and then a moment later added, "You wanted this yourself. Since you're outside, it would be a waste of resources not to investigate thoroughly. You need to look inside." Sure, I wanted this, right? To satisfy my morbid curiosity, deal with the crazy thoughts in my head that kept me awake, and filled what little sleep I had with nightmares. Now, on the threshold, I realized I was so terrified that even moving my arm took considerable effort. And yet, I had no choice. I had to see it through. The bag opened with a specially designed zipper. No sound, but I felt the clicks of the parting teeth. It's stupid, but when I pulled back the flap, I could have sworn a horrific stench washed over me. It lasted no more than a couple of seconds, but it was so distinct I turned away and squeezed my eyes shut. Tears welled up. Power of suggestion, I told myself again. Opening my eyes, that's all, nothing more. No air, no sound, no smell. I took a few deep breaths, trying not to let this incident derail me further, and looked inside the bag. Immediately, several people watching the video feed gasped, and I let out a rather pitiful sound, a cross between a moan and a scream. I expected something, God. At worst, I expected something like The Walking Dead. Bluish skin, icicles on the eyelashes, like a body found in the Arctic. But Ben had transformed. Huge, jagged shards of frozen blood erupted from his eyes, ears, and mouth. His jaw was dislocated at an unnatural angle due to an icicle the size of my forearm sticking out of it. His neck was broken, torso shredded, strips of flesh hanging in rags, and his hands were clawing into his own face with strange yellow nails. They had even left furrows in the skin. "What the fuck is this?" I asked, addressing no one in particular. And only then did I realize that Mission Control had been talking amongst themselves this whole time. Bag malfunction, unforeseen pressure, and temperature changes. No, this is not normal. Let's not pretend this is normal, guys, I snapped, cutting through their chatter, after which silence fell. Why are his arms twisted like that? Muscle spasms, possibly caused by, well, whatever triggered such an unusual reaction in his circulatory system. Maybe that's why his hands were drawn to his face. He has scratches on his cheeks, I replied, skin under his nails. Are we absolutely sure he was dead when I hauled him out here? A dozen alarmed voices speaking over each other, desperately trying to avoid the slightest hint of responsibility, told me no, that's impossible. But looking at Ben's mutilated face, I couldn't help but feel a sliver of doubt. I was about to ask what I should do next when the sun rose over the station. Unlike on Earth, here it wasn't a gentle dawn. It flared up like a light switch being flipped. Fortunately, the spacesuit had time to react before the light blinded me, but the temperature began to rise rapidly. I watched as, with the arrival of heat, something under Ben's skin began to writhe. That was definitely not normal. At this moment, we cannot provide any additional explanations. The footage you are transmitting to us is being reviewed by a panel of experts, Mission Control reported, somewhat hurriedly and mechanically, as if the person on the other end was suppressing panic. Current orders are to take samples, seal the bag, and return to the station. Are you sure I should drag this crap inside? There was some indistinct muttering, after which the same operator replied, "Forget the samples, seal the bag, return to the station." "With pleasure," I replied, unzipping it up. I couldn't wait to get out of there, and I made the trip back faster than I should have. That oppressive feeling of an alien gaze making my skin crawl wouldn't let go. It made me clumsy, and on the way back, I bumped into things more than once, as if I had suddenly forgotten how to control the spacesuit. I just couldn't shake the thought that, no matter where I looked, someone or something managed to dart back out of sight. Of course, that was impossible, I kept telling myself. What could survive in open space? But it only made it worse. Imagining something slipping through the shadows, knocking on the hull, stalking me every step of the way. When I finally reached the hatch, the tension inside me peaked. If something was going to happen, it would be right now, with my back to infinity. I had never felt so vulnerable. "Reynolds!" The sound made me jump. I was so focused on my surroundings that I completely forgot about the room full of people thousands of kilometers away watching me. What is it? Reynolds, we're seeing something strange here. I was told to relay that you should hold off on returning for now. The tone of the voice on the other end made my stomach drop. They didn't just sound confused. And believe me, when you're all alone, hanging off the edge of a space station, mere confusion would be enough. But no, there was something else. Fear. We've detected an anomaly, they added. No one down here knows how to proceed. Right now, we are waiting for instructions from upper management. This is an unprecedented event. What's going on? It started with, well, signals from some biomonitors, specifically Ben's instruments. That last word hit me like a truck. What? Yes. And the cameras? At first we thought they broke. Looked like Ben's bag was empty. And then Reynolds, we noticed something else. Guys, what is going on here? I'm being told I can't say more. Just wait. I gripped the handrail tighter. My heart was pounding. Finally, the hatch opened, and I was ready to ignore all orders when the man from Mission Control practically screamed in my ear. Do not enter, Reynolds. Do not enter the station. Judging by what we see on the cameras, you cannot let that inside. If there's something here, I need to get to safety before it gets to me. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. My brain was working feverishly. I heard it. I heard a sound in the vacuum of space. I looked at my arms and legs. It couldn't be. Unless, knock, knock, knock. Without turning my head, I squinted at the very edge of the helmet visor and saw a single yellow nail tapping gently on the glass. The man at Mission Control spoke in a chilling whisper. It's on your suit. The terror that pierced me was akin to an electric shock. White fire coursing through my veins. Without even thinking, I reacted as if I had just discovered a grenade strapped to my back. Pure instinct. No reason. I screamed and spun around sharply, trying to shake Ben off my back, but only succeeded in damaging my suit and triggering the alarm. Get it off, I yelled into the void. Get it off me. I thrashed desperately and felt something scraping along the outside of my bulky suit. Finally, my eyes fell on something useful. The thruster controls. I grabbed the levers and immediately launched into the open airlock, turning at the last second to slam my back with all my might into the thick inner door. I could only hope that whatever was attached to me was crushed by the impact. But when I looked up, Ben was still outside, staring at me with a mouth full of frozen blood. Slowly, with the terrifying certainty of a predator, he prepared to climb inside the station. Reynolds, get away from the hatch. We are initiating emergency closure. Ben managed to shove one arm inside before the hatch clanged shut and severed it. Even in space, through the bulkhead separating us, I could have sworn I heard him scream. Ignoring Ben, or the sounds he made, was no longer possible. Terrifying blows hammered the station, and their source shifted seemingly at random, and it was driving the people on Earth crazy. Oh, over the last few hours, I had listened to my fair share of rational explanations. I was sent a whole array of every conceivable expert. Since my colleague's death, I had battled all sorts of delusional thoughts. But after the spacewalk, they seemed to escape my head and were now terrorizing other fellow skeptics. Try as they might, no one at Mission Control could find an explanation for this, but they didn't have the diary. After what happened during the spacewalk, figuring out what the hell was going on became my priority. The numbers Ben wrote down weren't gibberish. I partly knew that from the beginning. Reading them was like reading another language, something secret and hidden. And though I never cracked the code, even now, after so much time, I still understood where Ben got it: light. The trick was to dig deeper into Ben's research, specifically his personal project, the one he had chased almost his whole life. A small comet, an ice ball far out in the Kepler belt, right where the solar system ends and the great cosmic void begins. Something tiny, insignificant, that rotated, shifted, and occasionally caught the sun's rays, reflecting photons straight at us. A glittering snowball so dim it was impossible to spot unless you were in the right place at the right time. Like Ben was when he was just 10 years old, playing with his dad's amateur telescope in the backyard. Light in the darkness. Light directed at several instruments Ben set up to record every tiny emission. Flash, dark. Flash, dark, flash. Knock, knock, knock. From binary to hexadecimal. And from there, God. Into something else. Oh, into something that spoke to him. Something out there was conversing with him. I don't know what scared me more. The knocking of a reanimated Ben on the station, an inevitable, too close threat, or the thought that something in the void had been whispering unknown secrets to a human for the past 2 decades. This thought periodically washed over me like a tide and consumed me entirely if I lingered on it for more than a few moments. I never understood what the transmission was about, but I was mesmerized anyway. And not just by Ben's little diary, which contained hundreds, thousands of handwritten entries, but also by the live feed he had set up on his computer and translated into sound. It was like an earworm on steroids, like acidic white noise, a stream of alien ideas that, if listened to for too long, tangled my thoughts and made me drool. In total, I had access to this broadcast for no more than a few days, and by the end, I felt like I was on the verge of disintegrating. But Ben had been exposed to this since childhood, listening for years, writing it down and waiting, working on something none of us could ever hope to understand. I could only assume this broadcast was the cause of his death, and even worse, what happened to him afterward. Was this always the reason he aimed for space? Was the Ben I knew just a fiction? That sound, the light coming from out there was something wrong about it. It wasn't a gentle lullaby or a siren's call. It was something dark and all-consuming. Why did he give in to it? Why did he do everything it wanted? What part of his life was lived for its needs and desires? Listening all day to Ben's furious rampage on the station's hull, I was sure of only one thing. Whatever was talking to him out there, it was hostile, and it couldn't be allowed to return with me. Reynolds, I'm being told the evacuation will be a bit non-standard. I snorted, finishing putting on the spacesuit, to put it mildly. And what did they tell you? I asked, pulling on the helmet and starting the hatch opening cycle. They fear contamination, the pilot replied. I don't know what that means. They didn't specify biological or chemical. Sounds a bit weird to me, but we have to pick you up right in open space, right? Yeah, I replied. Are you ready for this? We were told we can get within about 200 meters, but you'll have to cover the rest of the distance using the suit's thrusters. It'll be quite a ride. Flying from one ship to another without a tether. No one had done that before. I'm fully aware of the risks, I said. Just keep your eyes peeled. This time it was his turn to snort. Peeled for what? He exclaimed. You'll understand when you see it. I made the journey with my back to the shuttle, floating backwards slowly but surely. My eyes were glued to the station, searching for any sign of Ben. Sometimes a flash of red, a barely noticeable movement, something hidden by the station's panels and antennas, letting me know he was still outside prowling somewhere. As long as he stayed there, I knew I'd be fine. But all the while, I waited for the catch, waiting for the tension to finally erupt into the deadly danger I knew was waiting for me. I was even surprised when I approached the shuttle without incident, and the pilot reported we were close, and it was time to turn around, which I did, turning smoothly like a diver surfacing. I had my back to the station for no more than a few seconds when the pilot grunted. Strange. His voice sounded casual, but the object that slammed into me was anything but small. Ben, who had no interest in a safe flight, had launched himself from the station with all his might, with absolutely no way to brake. He crashed into me at full speed and smashed me into the airlock frame, after which we both tumbled into the void before anyone could even process his attack. This time, he didn't let me block him out with a door. He crawled over my spacesuit like a crazed insect, which I frantically tried to swat away as the immense void spun around us. The stars turned into streaks. The shuttle flashed in my helmet's field of view in almost random directions. It was nauseating and terrifying, and I prayed to God I could stabilize the spin before it spiraled out of control. But all that took a back seat to the monster clinging to my suit. At one point, he crawled over so that I got a good look at him for the first time in days. It was close, too personal. Even through the helmet glass, I could make out details so horrifyingly sharp that for a moment I froze in terror, only catching the pilot's panicked screams over the comms out of the corner of my ear. Jesus Christ, what is that? Reynolds, you need to stabilize. A little more and we won't be able to help. And whatever you do, keep in mind, that thing is not coming aboard the shuttle. I wanted to answer, but I was busy trying to wedge my arm between myself and Ben, who was now a jumble of jagged red crystals of all sizes. Some like kitchen knives, others like sewing needles. The ultimate nightmare for a spacesuit. A puncture wouldn't lead to the explosive decompression you're probably picturing. Instead, I'd have maybe a few moments before the air enveloping the suit dissipated. After that, my lungs would collapse, my blood would boil, and the water in my eyes, ears, and other soft tissues would turn to steam and try to escape, like frostbite in Fast Forward. But punctures weren't my only concern. I knew I had to keep Ben's hands away from the helmet. I don't know if the creature animating him had access to all his memories, but Ben knew perfectly well how to take a helmet off from the outside, and so all my strength went into keeping his vile little fingers away from my neck. With a puncture, I'd still have time to get back to the shuttle, but without a helmet, I was doomed to a very painful death. I fought back with all my might, realizing everything depended on whether I could push him off. But Ben was flexible and insectoid. He constantly slipped away whenever I was ready to give him a good kick. His fingers easily found purchase on the spacesuit, with all its ridges and details, while I was essentially wielding oven mitts that robbed me of all maneuverability. I didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of shaking him off the normal way, but I had something else on my side: inertia. All this time, we had been spinning wildly, and centrifugal force was just about the only thing trying to tear us apart. Up until now, and I had been fighting it. But why? At the last moment, I realized I only had one option left, so I hit the thrusters at half power and decided to make this already nearly uncontrollable spin much, much stronger. Normally, An uncontrollable spin is one of those nightmare scenarios any astronaut dreads. Humans are asymmetrical, and if you start spinning on more than one axis, applying additional force will likely only make it worse. Stabilizing requires immense experience and intuition, but even then, there are no guarantees you can stop. It's much more likely that by the time you figure out what to do, centrifugal forces will have already knocked you unconscious, and from there, death is just a stone's throw away. For me, it was my only chance. I sped up the rotation and kept accelerating, holding the button down until the acting forces started dragging Ben further toward the front of the suit, where inertia was pushing us. Two objects in almost perfect symmetry, ready to fly apart in opposite directions at any moment. Ben held on longer than I did. At some point, my limbs went weak. My vision darkened, my arms dropped to my sides, no longer able to fight off the monster. But by then, it took all of Ben's strength just to hold on to me, and he could no longer attack or pick at my helmet. Eventually, even he had to give up, as the spin grew faster and the forces tearing us apart grew more powerful. It was like every roller coaster I'd ever ridden merged into one and cranked to the max. The last thing I remembered before passing out was Ben's monstrous face flying off into the void. I came to aboard the shuttle. Several men and women were crowded around me. Jesus Christ, you're one lucky son of a bitch. I groaned and shifted my gaze to whoever said it. Seemed to be the pilot. Nice to finally put a face to the voice. Don't feel very lucky, I exhaled. You came flying and spinning right at us. We already had our suits on and were on our way. Got you just in time. That suit was riddled with holes. A little later, and we wouldn't have been there to catch you and drag you to safety. But this way, buddy, you're going home. The medical check didn't show any major issues. Think you'll be all right. And where is Ben? The people around me exchanged strange looks before it dawned on one of them. Benjamin Waitley, the second astronaut. Is he the one who attacked you? I nodded. Well, he flew off, they replied. If that really was your colleague, we're sorry. Looks like there's a lot we don't know. I'll tell you everything when I feel better, I coughed. Well, whatever happened to him, he'll enter Earth's atmosphere in the next few hours, the pilot replied. And then what? I asked. The pilot thought for a second. A human body hitting the atmosphere. It'll just burst into flames,